She called 911 on me while she was standing right there on my shoreline tape measure in one hand, trespass violation form in the other, like she was out staking a claim for some lost civilization. And let me tell you, there's nothing quite like watching blue lights bounce off the lake water as a patrol boat comes in, sirens echoing across a cove that's usually so quiet you can hear the fish jump. Karen stood there, chin up, sunglasses pointed at me like weapons, telling the dispatcher I was camping illegally. She wanted officers sent out right now. What she didn't know, what she never even considered, was that I recorded everything, every threat, every boundary she crossed, every single time she set foot on land that wasn't hers. And what she really didn't know, this lake property wasn't just some place I pitched a tent for the weekend. This was my inheritance. This land was handed down to me by a man whose name still carries more weight in this county than she could ever imagine. I looked at the officer as he stepped off that boat, and before he could even get a word out, Karen jabbed a finger at my tent, already declaring he's not allowed to be here. But what that deputy said next, well, that changed everything. Before I get to that, let me back up a sec, because this was never about camping. This was about a land dispute she should have never started. See, I spent 12 years in the Army, 12 years learning how to read terrain, trust silence, stand my ground when the world tried to push me off it. Maybe that's why my grandfather picked me to inherit this little crescent of land tucked into a quiet cove where the water barely moves in the mornings. The first time I set foot on this dirt after his funeral, I felt the air settle in around me, the same pine and stone smell I remembered from childhood when he taught me to cast a line and listen before I spoke. It never felt like real estate. It felt like a promise. The cabin is small, the dock is weathered, but everywhere you look, you see his fingerprints. I'd walk the shoreline, tracing the rocks he stacked by hand, listening to the soft slap of water against the dock posts. For a second, the world felt untouched the way he wanted it. Then the letters started coming. First polite, then pushy. The local HOA one I never joined, one whose boundaries were miles away from my deed, claimed all lake access was under their jurisdiction. They expected permits, fees, compliance. They expected me to bend. At first, I thought it was just a clerical error, so I ignored them. But each new envelope felt sharper, hungrier. People who'd never set foot on this dirt suddenly wanted to dictate what happened on it. The obsession grew, seeping into every quiet morning I tried to reclaim. I should have seen the storm coming, should have realized the same still water that calmed me was the same water they wanted to own. But I didn't. Not until their warnings turned into visits, and those visits turned into threats. That's what led to the night the blue lights hit the water, and Karen was glued to her phone, convinced she had the right to take over a legacy she never earned. That's when I knew this battle wasn't ending until I stood my ground right here. Right. My grandfather bought this land long before anybody even dreamed up an HOA in this county. Back then, the lake was just a wild stretch, surrounded by cedar and scrub pine families minded their own business. He found this cove in '68 foggy morning out fishing in an old aluminum boat. Said the water spoke to him, though he never explained what it said. He bought it outright, cash, deed, shoreline rights and all, and built the dock himself. Every board, every nail, every cleat had a story. When I was a kid, we'd sit on that dock in the morning, watch the mist roll off the lake like steam from a kettle, the wood creaking soft under our weight. He'd hand me a mug of cocoa and say, "Listen to the water. It'll tell you when something's wrong." Didn't know what he meant until now. For decades, he kept the shoreline open. Neighbors tied up boats, let their kids swim, skipped rocks off the dock. No permission slips, no paperwork, just respect. You can see it in old photos, towels, coolers, bare feet. Land was meant to be shared with good people, he believed. And for a long time, that worked. Everyone but Karen understood the line between generosity and ownership. When he got older, he talked more about the land, not just property, but the land. The way the wind changed before storms, how the cattails leaned when the lake dropped, the way rain smelled before it arrived. I didn't realize he was preparing me. One night we sat on the dock at sunset, cicadas singing the sky orange and violet. He just looked at me and said, "You're the only one who listens to this place." I nodded, didn't know what else to say. He dipped his hand in the water like a blessing. That memory stuck. After he died, the place felt heavier. I'd walk the shore, feel the crunch of needles under my boots, the smell of sharp lake mud, hear the dock creak in the dark. Every sound a reminder, take care of this. I had no idea someone would try to take it from me. But the lake knew. That stillness, it felt off, like it was warning me. And that's when Karen came barreling into the story. She didn't just join the HOA, she steamrolled it. 5 years after she moved in, she went from concerned resident to board member to self-appointed guardian of property value integrity. Her favorite phrase and her favorite weapon. She used it like a badge, a spell, a shield to justify every boundary she crossed. Neighbors stiffened when her name came up. Folks apologized for parking too close to a mailbox, leaving a canoe by the shore, letting a dog bark too long. They weren't scared of the HOA, they were scared of Karen. She didn't enforce rules, she manufactured them. My first real meeting with her was almost cinematic. I was fixing dock stairs when I heard her footsteps, sharp, determined, coming up from the road. Rigid posture, oversized sunglasses, ponytail, clipboard, hugged tight like body armor. She didn't smile, didn't introduce herself, just knocked on my door like she owned the hinges. When I opened up, she hit me with that look, half suspicion, half disappointment. We expect compliance from everyone, even legacy landowners. She said, her voice so crisp it could have cut bark off a tree. I kept it calm. I'm not under your HOA. She blinked, recalibrating her own authority, then flipped her clipboard like it was a magic spell. All lake-adjacent residents fall under our oversight. It's about order. Behind her, the water shimmered, mocking the idea it could belong to her. That wasn't how property lines worked, I told her. Her jaw tightened. She didn't like resistance. Neighbors later said she could break anyone with enough letters, enough persistence, enough authority, but not me. I could see then she didn't just want compliance, she wanted the lake. At first the stakes hit me emotionally. This land was the last piece of my grandfather I could still touch. Losing it wasn't an option. But then the financial side crept in. Lakefront land out here is worth more than gold. People bend rules, gamble reputations for it. Taxes, upkeep, repairs. I'd budgeted for all of that. But a hostile HOA, fines, I didn't owe, restrictions they couldn't enforce. That boiled my blood. Neighbors would quietly say, "Don't let her push you off your land." Another left a note on my truck. Simply stand firm. They didn't want to fight, they wanted relief. My resistance gave them hope. It started slow. Warm Saturday sunlight on the water. Karen shows up, clipboard in hand, lips pursed. "You need a shoreline usage permit." I stared at her. Then the paper. "For what?" "For any maintenance, any activity," she said, tapping the signature line. I said, "This isn't under HOA authority." She smiled. No warmth. All community accessible waterways fall under our policies. I just said, "I'm repairing my dock." "On my land." She stepped in closer. "Then you need to register your property. Legacy lots must be documented. You want me to register with an organization that doesn't govern this land?" "Standard procedure?" She sniffed. "Everyone complies." I said, "I'm not signing anything." A flicker of irritation crossed her face. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "No, you are." She turned and crunched away on the gravel. She looked back once and I saw it. She didn't see a neighbor. She saw an obstacle. Then the violations started coming. Neon yellow slip on my windshield, improper vehicle storage, not a real fine, an HOA fine on my own truck, on my own land. The next day, a sign on a cedar trunk near my tent. Unauthorized campsite. Violations pending. I ripped it down. That night, I noticed footprints in the damp soil, neat, deliberate. Someone walked right up to my tent while I slept. Then came the cameras. Volunteers pretending to admire the view but snapping pictures of my gear. Notes appeared on my porch, warnings. Fake fines, all designed to wear me down. The worst part. She called a meeting and put me on the agenda as concerned party absent. Called me a non-compliant squatter and accused me of vandalizing the shoreline. All while I wasn't there to defend myself. Sitting by the water lantern humming, I realized she wasn't testing my patience. She was building a case. Every citation, every staged photo, every rumor ammunition. The next phase came faster than I expected. Stack of final notice envelopes, each one with fines, violations, fabricated nonsense. I wasn't even a member of the HOA. A week later, I caught her trespassing, again clipboard tape measure, another board member in tow. She didn't care about the law, she cared about control. And then the drones started. At first I thought it was kids flying toys. But then I noticed every time I unloaded groceries or sat by the fire, a drone buzzed overhead, camera aimed right at me. Nights brought golf cart patrols, flashlights scanning my windows. Neighbors pretending to check the mailbox while snapping photos. They wanted to make the lake feel smaller, like I was always being watched. But then, plot twist, a neighbor named Tom Quiet Guy stops me while I'm stacking firewood. "She's trying to take over the lake," he whispered. "Your cove's the last piece she doesn't control. If she gets it, she gets the whole lake." That hit me hard. She didn't care about bylaws. She wanted power. But here's what she didn't know. My deed spelled out riparian rights. No easements, no shared boundary, and because my property existed before the HOA, no obligation to comply. So I switched gears. Defense turned to documentation. Installed trail cams hidden in cedar clusters in an old birdhouse. Drove in heavy cedar stakes, marked the boundaries, posted new signs. No HOA jurisdiction. Private property. Trespassers will be recorded. The lake hummed around me. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was watching. Cameras paid off quick footage of Karen trespassing, clipboard tape measure, even bringing another board member to survey my land. Every step she took, every line she crossed, I documented it all. And then, well, you know where this is going. One night the air is still, the moon turning the lake silver. Karen steps into my campfire light, recording on her phone, waving violation forms, narrating my crimes like she's hosting a true crime show. "Open flame, illegal camping, unregistered watercraft," she says, filming my face. I don't react. I start recording too. "You think filming me is going to help?" she snaps. "Just documenting, same as you," I reply. She dials 911, voice trembling on purpose. "There's a man camping illegally. I feel unsafe." She paces, making sure the camera catches every angle. "He's threatening the environment. He's violating bylaws." I speak loud enough for her phone to hear. "This is private land." She snaps, "Stop talking. You're interfering." Then the patrol boat engine hums across the water, spotlight sweeping. Karen straightens up, fixing her hair, clipboard at the ready. The deputies step out, calm, boots on wood. She launches right into her speech. "Officers, thank you for coming. Remove this man. He's violating multiple HOA regulations." The deputy doesn't blink. "Ma'am, let's start by figuring out where we are. Sir, is this your campsite?" "It's my property," I say. "Private land. I have documentation." Karen scoffs, waving papers. "This is community shoreline. I'm enforcing compliance." The deputy points his flashlight at my boundary markers. "We're here to assess trespassing, not enforce HOA policy." She tries again. "But you're obligated to remove him." The deputy cuts her off. "We're not code enforcement. HOA violations aren't criminal matters." She turns to accusations. "He threatened me. I told her to stop trespassing." I say, still filming. The deputy asks for my documentation. I bring out the metal case, hand him the deed, and my grandfather's old plat map. He unfolds the paper, studies it. Ma'am, these are legal plat lines filed before the HOA existed. This parcel's outside your jurisdiction. Karen snaps. That's impossible. The HOA's updated the boundaries. The deputy doesn't even look at her. The county recognizes these. No authority here. She tries, but he's endangering the environment, and he recorded me without consent, I say. That's legal on private property. The deputy nods. You made a criminal report claiming he threatened you. Refusing to follow HOA orders on land not governed by the HOA isn't a threat. It's a boundary you crossed. She blinks, mouth open, not ready for the truth. Then he says it clear and cold. Ma'am, you're trespassing. The words cut through the night. Her face drains, clipboard shaking. What I was protecting, the community. No, he says, you were overstepping the law. Another deputy comes up with a tablet. I hand over my trail cam SD cards. Every time she trespassed, I say, they watch the footage, Karen marching through trees, jabbing at the dock with a tape measure, stepping over boundary posts. She says, you can't use that. I didn't consent. The deputy, it's legal. Filming trespass on your own land is fully allowed. Just then, headlights on the road. Door slams. The HOA president, Paul, shows up breathless. Karen called about a safety concern. Deputies show him the footage. Karen begs, tell them he's violating guidelines. Paul just shakes his head. Karen, the HOA has no authority here. I told you to stop. Deputies list her charges, trespassing, harassment, false emergency reporting. No, it was a valid call. I felt threatened. The deputy says compliance with rules you invented. Then, for the third and final time, deeds and plat maps override HOA claims. Period. Paul turns to her. Karen, why didn't you stop? I was protecting property values, not your land, not your call. She crumbles tears, not from guilt but humiliation. This can't be happening. But it was. The lake, quiet and ancient, reflected her downfall in its surface. The fallout rolled in slow and steady. Deputies cited her for trespassing, every violation logged with a timestamp. The big blow, filing a false 911 report. Expect fines in a hearing, the deputy told her. She didn't argue, didn't even look at him. The HOA board sent a certified letter 2 days later formally stating they had no authority over my land, retracting every fine and warning and admitting Karen acted on her own. Word spread like wildfire. The next HOA meeting, Karen was removed from the board, standing alone, purse straps white-knuckled in her hands as the vote passed. She tried to defend herself. I was protecting this community. Nobody answered. By the end of the week, Karen was nowhere near the lake. No drones, no volunteers, no threats. The empire she'd built on intimidation collapsed. The tension faded slowly like dawn after a heavy night. Neighbors approached with quiet gratitude. Mr. Langley, old hat in hand, said, "Thank you." Most of us didn't know how to push back. You did what we couldn't. Others stopped by with bread, with apologies, with relief. The moment that hit me most was when Mrs. Harper brought an old photo, my grandfather on the dock, neighborhood kids at his side, sunlight dancing on the water. He never turned anyone away, she said. A lot of us grew up here because of this place. That's why the fight mattered. This wasn't just dirt. It was memory, heritage, community. The lake began to heal. Families came back. Kids skipped rocks. Potlucks happened on the shore. The dock became a gathering point again, not a symbol of conflict. The fear Karen spread evaporated. The lake was alive, free, not controlled. A few days later at sunrise, I went to the dock with coffee and a toolbox. Cool air, pale gold sky, old boards groaning under my weight. I knelt down and replaced them one by one, each hammer strike steady and sure. No eyes watching, no drones, just me, the lake, and the sound of wood settling into place. Later in the cabin, I opened my grandfather's letters. In his careful handwriting, land remembers who protects it. It wasn't advice, it was a promise, a responsibility. That night I took a lantern to the end of the dock. The glow spilled onto the water, gold and quiet. Behind me, the little American flag by the cabin fluttered its reflection, joining the lantern's light. For the first time in months, the cove felt whole again. The fight was never about owning land. It was about honoring a promise, protecting the place that always protected me. If you've listened this far, you already know standing your ground isn't just a choice, it's a responsibility. My story is just one piece of a much bigger pattern. I know plenty of you out there have your own battles, your own HOA nightmares, your own fights for what's right. So tell me your story in the comments. What did you stand up for? What are you still fighting? You never know who you might help. And if you want more real justice stories, more truth, more moments where the little guy finally wins, stick around.